So I've been living it up in Schrodinger's land ever since I last put a camera in front of my face. I've had a pretty good time. I've met some folks, had a couple milks, but I got bored fast. So I've been trying to figure out a way how to get out of here, but so far I've had no luck. I don't get it. All three of my slightly different equations have just resulted in a picture of a ladder with the name Bloodlust ladder on top of it. Granted, I probably should have changed more than one variable, but the point still stands. So I thought I might use whatever this is for a video. Plus, it'll act as a break from the work I started 10 minutes ago and lost motivation to finish. However, we need to get one thing clear. What the fuck is a ladder?
Ah, yes, the ladder. Man's best friend when it comes to getting on top of roofs. A practical invention that has been around a little bit longer than Chris Hemsworth. It also has a new meaning when it comes to Geometry Dash.
Thank God, I was wondering when RobTop would start having GD crossovers.
The ladder system, coined by our second favourite British Geometry Dash player Brandon Larkin, is a system in which one selects a variety of easier levels that progressively get harder, which culminates in a big final step. This system was first used in Brandon Larkin's Erebus ladder, and would later be used in his Crimson Planet ladder and Luigi DB's Bloodlust ladder. Now, I like the idea of having a ladder system like this, but one thing bugged me that was present in all three cases. You see, none of these ladders had levels that focused on honing specific skills used in the final level. For example, the Lost Existence was used in the Erebus ladder. Yes, I want to learn how to make pasta, so to prepare for that, I'm going to take a wood carving class. What's the point in having a ladder if none of the levels help build the skills needed for the big finale? This part bugged me a lot, and as someone who likes things to be organized and logical, I could not let this injustice slide. However, to be fair to Brandon Larkin, there's not many levels like Erebus or Crimson Planet, so it's somewhat passable. Luigi's Bloodlust ladder, on the other hand,
How the fuck is hatred going to help you with bloodlust?
Bloodlust is pretty hard, and it primarily utilizes some of the most common skills in extremes, ship and endurance. It comes in second for hardest ship-based level, and third for hardest endurance level. Now you might be wondering, why not do a Tartarus or Zodiac ladder?
Because fuck you, I'm the one with the camera.
Before we start narrowing down our levels, I'm just going to make one final adjustment. The traditional ladder system has 10 levels, including the final level at the top. However, in the ladder I'm going to be making today, there will be a total of 15 levels. 10 levels on the ladder, 4 alternates, and Bloodlust itself. My reasoning for this is that I imagine Bloodlust as the destination that you use the ladder to reach, which I think is a fair visualization of the whole thing. Anyways, let's start making the ladder. Obviously, the first levels we have to disqualify are anything harder than Bloodlust, because duh. These levels are all harder than Bloodlust, so they do not apply for the ladder. I'm also going to disqualify every other top 20 except Visible Ray. Visible Ray is a weird case. It's pretty long and tests everything, which is important since Bloodlust is more than just ship.
Alright, I am ready for this calculus test. I forgot how to do long division.
I won't eliminate Visible Ray just yet. We'll see what else we have when we've trimmed the fat. The next step in finding potential candidates for our list is getting rid of levels that are the opposite of Bloodlust, which in this case would be a short, timing, memory, or wave-based level. These levels all would be detrimental to add to the ladder as they don't test skills used in Bloodlust. I'm also going to disqualify any level easier than Bloodbath aside from a few Excel levels around Bloodbath's difficulty. It would just get messy if I included levels easier than Bloodbath in the ladder. Now, you might think we have all the levels we would need to make our ladder, but that's not the case. Not all Excel levels are built the same. Levels like Freedom Away and Artiface are more about learning sync-based parts. These skills don't really apply to Bloodlust, so while these levels could help with endurance, there's much better levels suited to a Bloodlust ladder. If this was a calculated core ladder, these levels would work really well here, but alas, this is a Bloodlust ladder.
I thought this was a tutorial on how to make mac and cheese.
I mean, I can't blame you. Bloodlust and mac and cheese are pretty much interchangeable, honestly.
As such, these levels are being excluded from the list. These levels could help you with your endurance, but aside from being long, they have completely different skill sets needed than what is needed for Bloodlust. Something like Titan Complex could be used as an alternate if absolutely necessary, but these levels should not be the first things you put on the ladder. I'm also going to eliminate the Sonic Wave Quadrology for the same reason. The only skill they share with Bloodlust is endurance.
With all that factored in, we're left with a list of levels that share at least one of the two major skills needed for Bloodlust, but also don't have any skills that conflict with those skills. We can finally start creating the ladder, and the first level I'm going to put on the ladder is Bloodbath.
Why in the world would you choose that level?
Loops, just go make your mac and cheese.
Bloodlust is a remake of Bloodbath. Of course I'm going to make it the first level in the ladder. It tests ship skill and endurance, and it's just the right amount of other game modes in it to allow you to not be unprepared for them in Bloodlust.
I'm also going to put Electrolux as one of the 4 alternates.
That level sucks, though.
I never said this was going to be a fun experience.
Electrolux is a tad easier than Bloodbath, so if you've already beaten Bloodbath or don't want to beat it for whatever reason, Electrolux will suffice. This slightly nudges out Glacial Torrent since Glacial has more duels in it, but both are acceptable alternates. For my ladder, I'm going to put Electrolux as an alternate and disqualify Glacial, but the two are pretty interchangeable. I'm going to disqualify Epsilon and Atmosphere as well, since both levels are directly above Bloodbath and it would be detrimental to only have the ladder advance one space at a time, since we only have 10 levels on it, especially considering that all the levels currently mentioned are in the Legacy list. I also don't want to clog up the alternate levels with them, so they'll be disqualified. Both could function as first steps in the ladder, so if you'd rather beat either of these levels instead of Bloodbath, go ahead.
The next level I chose for the ladder is Ancestral Calamity. I did not think of a better way to reveal the name.
This was a tough choice. Both this and Blade of Justice are quite similar in difficulty and both have their pros and cons. Ultimately, however, I think Ancestral is a bit more beneficial as it's significantly longer, whereas BOJ is just under 2 minutes. Ancestral also tests everything, which is important as, say it with me now,
Bloodlust is not just ship.
Unfortunately for you BOJ fans, I will disqualify instead of placing it as an alternate, as it is still a legacy level. I know it hurts to do this, but otherwise the alternates will all be easy levels, and that's not a great game plan. I will also disqualify Carnage Mode, Phobos, and Dimension Breaker, as all are too close to Ancestral Calamity in difficulty to justify placing them on the ladder or having them as alternates. Trust me, you're not missing much by skipping these levels.
For the third level on the ladder, I chose eggs? Oh, wait a minute, this is my grocery list ladder. The actual third level is Asmodeus.
Probably the most questionable choice on the ladder, Asmodeus is seemingly the opposite of Bloodlust, but its gameplay is structured quite similarly to the extension of Bloodlust. It's not an exact copy, but the similarities are apparent enough. The extension is one of the parts of Bloodlust people struggle with the most, so having some prior experience with gameplay like it is useful. Envy and Mystic are both levels that could also give you some experience with the gameplay of the extension of Bloodlust, but both are also filled with a lot more nonsense than Asmodeus, so that eliminates both of them. Next up is a really difficult choice to make. Disentombed is one of the longest extreme demons, so adding it to the ladder would really help with the endurance aspect of Bloodlust. However, Disentombed's pacing is very different from that of Bloodlust. Disentombed has a good 2 minutes of slow, low CPS gameplay, whereas Bloodlust rarely slows down for more than a few seconds. I'll put Disentombed as an alternate, just in case anyone who uses this ladder is really bad at endurance and wants to drastically improve. Fabricated Thoughts, Shockbreaker, Ithacropolis, and Galactic Shift are all levels that could work if absolutely needed, but there's much better levels that support the skills needed for Bloodlust, so all 4 are going to get disqualified. I gave Luigi some shit earlier for his Bloodlust ladder choices, but in all honesty, he did choose some very solid levels for it. One of those levels was a Thanatos, but I feel very weird about what to do with it. It doesn't boost the skills needed for Bloodlust enough to justify putting it straight onto the ladder, but at the same time, I don't want to use up 3 alternates this early on. I unfortunately have to disqualify Thanatos, but that's not without much consideration. Because of this, I've organized a funeral for Thanatos' unfortunate removal. It was a a good man. He was a good man. Good soldier and a good contender. But as the old saying goes, a Thanatos walked so Infernal Abyss could run. Damn it, I just revealed the 4th level of the ladder. Infernal Abyss is almost the perfect level for a Bloodlust ladder. Testing ship and wave skills and basically nothing else, Infernal Abyss has a harder second half, which is a possibility one might encounter while facing Bloodlust. And there's also some small ball and UFO sections like in Bloodlust. Will it be fun?
No.
From Infernal Abyss, we hit a fork in the road. Both 211 and Audio Explosion are good levels for the ladder that really need to be chosen on a case-by-case basis. If you need to improve your ship and wave skill, go for 211. If you need to get better at everything, go for Audio Explosion. For this reason, I'm going to add both at the 5th spot on the ladder. Keep in mind that you should choose one of these based on what you need to improve on more, but doing both won't hurt either. Surge of the Shield falls into the same boat as Shockbreaker and Galactic Shift. If needs be, you can use it as a replacement, but only then.
If you happen to like Surge of the Shield, I've dialed some therapists to understand why you like such a shit level. Speaking of shit levels, I'm a bad person, I know.
Astral Divinity may suck donkey balls, but it does test ship skill more than most other levels here, so unfortunately, it goes on the ladder.
Can this day get any sadder?
Every second you spend not making mac and cheese, the worse your mental state gets. These are facts.
While you do present a compelling argument, I have one ultimate rebuttal. I'll do it later.
Darn, it appears my argument has been destroyed. I will now go back to talking about the Bloodlust ladder.
Yeah, is garbage for Bloodlust and garbage in general. I don't know how it made it this far, but it's getting disqualified. Moving on. Glory is a good level for the ladder, but it's really bright, and adding it directly to the ladder would mean only 3 of the levels would be main list. However, I can't deny its use in strengthening ship and endurance, so I'll add it as an alternate. Now, we've entered the scary main list, and we've got quite a few contenders here. To start off, Ethereal Artifice doesn't contribute enough to the skill set we've been building by this point to justify even as an alternate, so it's getting disqualified. The same goes for Stygian Machinery, Lucid Chaos, Edge of the Blade, and Omicron. These levels are mostly just long levels that test everything, which means their inclusion in the ladder should only be if there wasn't any better levels, and there are better levels, so they shouldn't be considered. Fabrication falls under the same umbrella as Disentombed, so I'll put it as our 4th and final alternate. From here on out, the levels are going to get much harder, so be prepared. Right away, we're encountered with 2 very beneficial levels, being Step to Hell and Delta Interface. Considering the 2 are around the same difficulty, Step to Hell beats out Delta Interface by a landslide. This unfortunately means Delta Interface has been disqualified, even though it's the better level. Here's a reminder that the goal isn't to make the most fun Bloodlust ladder, it's to make the best Bloodlust ladder in terms of skill building, so Step to Hell wins. We then encounter a very difficult decision to make. You see, the 9th level of the ladder is Yatagarasu, as it is literally baby Bloodlust in every way. As such, we have 2 options to consider. The first option is we pick Photovoltaic 2 and build up the ship skills even more, but then take a 23 spot jump to Yatagarasu. The other option is jumping 18 spots to Dark Flare and building up everything, which makes the jump to Yatagarasu more manageable. I think at the end of the day, it's smarter to go for PV2 to make sure the ship skill is locked in completely. Doing that will make the Yatagarasu jump less of a jump, so as you'll be more proficient in ship. With that, we have 2 levels to choose for our final level, Visible Ray or Ouroboros. Both are much harder than Yata, but I think ultimately it's better to go with Visible Ray. Ouroboros is much too learning to help with Bloodlust, whereas Visible Ray tests everything.
So there we have it. That's my Bloodlust ladder. I'm curious if anyone watching actually uses this, and if so, please let me know what you think. I'm probably not going to do other ladders in the future, since most other notably hard levels would require a similar ladder, or just straight up not require a ladder. Anyways, I'm gonna head over to Loops' house and... Oh, of course. He burned his house down, what a surprise.
If only I had a tutorial on how to make it.
I'm not getting into this argument for the 5th time, but how the hell do you burn your house down 5 times because you didn't know how to make mac and cheese?
I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, stop judging me.
You are so stupid, dude.
Why don't you make a tutorial on how to make mac and cheese? This can be prevented in the future.
No.